Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks and you are checking out a Serum tip and trick tutorial video on ADSR. So in this video, we are going to be looking at how you can create a sequence / an arpeggiated pattern in Serum. About a year ago, I did a similar video, but Serum has since updated and added some new features to the synth that make this a little bit easier and allows you to do a little bit more to your sequences or arps. So let's just dive right in. All right, so there's the arp, right? If I hold down one key on my keyboard, we have an arp or a sequence. So first thing we're gonna do in this video is take more of a macro approach, kind of like a top-down look at everything that's happening, and then we'll tweak another sound to make a new arp or sequence. But I think this will make things a little bit clearer once we get to that step. So when you're going to try to make an arp or a sequence in Serum, the first thing you have to do is you have to be aware that you're going to need two different types of LFOs, essentially. One LFO you're going to turn into a stepper. And all I mean by that is instead of having this type of shape where it looks like an LFO, like a sine wave, a saw wave, square wave, even something, or like triangle wave, even something like this with more curves, you want a stepper where it's flat tops to your different points in the LFO. And that looks like this right here. Now there's a curve here, and that's what's creating the glide. But for the most part, it's these sort of things. Now the second LFO is going to kind of be the performer. It's going to be how that performs. And that's why in Massive, if any of you guys are past Massive users or current Massive users, that's why there was performers and steppers. The stepper is what you would use to create the arp or the sequence and move through different pitches, right? And the performer is how it would play. Would it be really quick and da-da-da-da-da, or a little bit more like da-da-da, that sort of thing. So know that you'll have to use, most likely to get a good result, two LFOs at the very least, right? So that being said, the first LFO you're going to want to create is your step or your step sequence. Now, I'm going to load up a new, we'll do a saw down, doesn't really matter. And so there, that would be the default shape in Serum. So we have just a basic triangle waveform here on LFO 5. And to take the typical LFO and turn it into what can be a stepper, you're going to hold down Shift on your keyboard and then click. And you'll notice as you do that, it creates flat points as opposed to the curved points, right? So that's essentially what I've done in LFO 1 already. So to test this out, I would suggest, if you've never done before, just starting with one oscillator. So we have LFO 1 active and LFO 2. LFO 2 is our performer. So I'm going to take this off of, we're just going to bypass it on all of its destinations, which were primarily oscillator A's level and the cutoff of our filter. So now we'll have a quiet, right? We'll have kind of that type of vibe going with just the stepper. Now what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to right click here and we're going to remove the modulator LFO 1 from oscillator A. So now if we play a note, it's just a sine wave, right? Okay. So there's a few ways you can create arps and sequences in Serum. And I would say in terms of how you modulate the pitch, go with what makes sense to you. There's different ways you can do it. You can modulate the pitch and then find the pitch difference. Like if you're trying to play a C note and you're starting in the middle of your grid to make your progression, and it makes more sense to you than tune physically like the semitone pitch by going up or down semitones till it sounds like it needs to sound. You can do that, or you can start at different values of the modulation depth to get you there. So what I did with this was I wanted it to go upwards. So this is actually kind of going up. So this is my start note, and then as I work down these different vertical grids, it's actually going to go up in pitch because I modulated in a negative direction. So that's a little bit confusing, but let's check it out. So if I pop LFO 1 onto the semi-pitch of oscillator A, and I'm using semi-pitch because I want it to be semitones, right? So it goes up and down the scale. Right now it's a bidirectional modulation. It's going both negative and positive. So to get that to a unidirectional, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, Shift, and click. And I'm going to go to negative 49. Okay, and this is going to basically say, this will actually be the note that I play, but it will be just a difference of an octave. So check this out. I'm hitting C4. This is C4. You can see it up here on top of Logic. But that note that you're hearing is actually a C3, right? So when you start at negative 49 and you're modulating down, it's going to pop whatever note you play down an octave, right? So if I unbypass, and that to me is easier than trying to find like different values and actually change this from 0 to -2 or +2 or 1 or whatever it may be to get to even out. So that's what's going on there. Now if I go up to +49, we'll check this out. We'll go up to +49, right, and I'll play the same note. Do you hear how it's going down in pitch now? So it completely changes the progression, right? Because this is going down this amount of steps as opposed to up, which is obviously going to change the note. So it's actually going like down from C to E to F, essentially. So you can really change the whole kind of feeling of an art by just changing which direction you're modulating the pitch to, right? So that's at +49. So let's take this, let's just, for kicks and giggles, take it to -12. So that's I'm hitting a C note. That first one is C. Now if we bypass this, you'll notice that the C doesn't sound like it, right? If we unbypass and hit it again, that first note is actually an A, right? So you'd have to manually move around the semitone pitch to get to fit. Now let's change this to +19, right? So I'm gonna hold down a C note, and we'll go down an octave here on my keyboard. Right, so if I bypass this, that first note now with the stepper and play at 19 is not a C note, right? All right, so I went down 5 semitones. I turned down the release. And now I'm playing it with a quiet oscillator too, which isn't being modulated by any step or pitch mod. So you can hear how it sounded a little bit weird, right? Like it's a little bit out of tune at the 19. If we dial this back to -4 maybe and take this down to, let's say, 15. Now let's try it. All right, so now it works at -4, right? So there's an example of how you can get it to work manually. So let's take this back now. We'll zero this out, the semitone value here. Oh, Serum, you bad boy. You thought I was trying to resize you. I wasn't. So I'm going to hit 0, and hopefully it changes the pitch back to 0 and not resize me back to 50%. That's actually a little bug I've noticed with the beta. Sometimes when you go to random values and click, and the resize will just kind of go AWOL. All right, so let's take this now, and we're going to click and drag back down to -49, okay? Because that's just going to change my octave value, but it's not going to change the actual pitch. So if I hit a C, that's a C. If I hit an A, turn this off, it's an A, right? So it makes sense to me to do it that way. All right, so then what you're going to do is obviously just mess around with the different steps in the LFO section, and this could be a little bit confusing. So this, because we're modulating in a negative direction, this is actually working up, right? So this note right here is the note that you're playing an octave down from where you're playing it. And if you take this one all the way to here, keep that right there, and we'll just take the second one here. Let's drag it down. Right? That's an octave above where you're playing. And this would work in the inverse if you're doing a positive modulation. Right, so that's still pretty cool. Now, these different steps represent different pitches. Now, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, you're like, well, there's only 9. So that means some steps are going to be in between grids. Well, that's very true up until a recent update of Serum. So if you hold this down, because this grid, an initial Serum, changed your horizontal grid points, right? You could go up to 16. Well, your vertical points were just missing. So now you can double click. And let's hit 8, so it's still 8 horizontally. We're gonna hit comma, then 12, then hit enter. Now you can see more lines appeared. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So now it makes sense. So if I take this right here, this one at this line should be going from a C to a B. And it is. So if I hold down one note right now, watch the C. It's going C to a B above it. And now if I play it quickly so the stepper doesn't kick in, same interval, right? So you can actually see the vertical amounts now. You don't have to guess. You don't know how welcome that is to Serum, because before, if I ever made an ARP for like a sound set or something, it would take me 10 minutes sometimes to find those like half note values or those values in between the grid mounts. So again, just double click 8, comma, whatever, or you can do 12. It depends on your horizontal grid. So let's hit play on our track here. So that sounds terrible. So we're going to take this and go down. All right, so this slide right here is just gliding, and it kind of glides to the pitch because it's not an even step up and down with vertical lines, right? I thought it was cool. Now to do that, you just literally can click, and you're going to click normally. You're not going to hold down Shift, and you can create that. So once you have your sequence and you've kind of drawn in the different pitch values that you want, and hopefully you've utilized that new feature of seeing 12 grid lines, the next thing you want to do is mess around with the performance aspect of it, because right now it's just going to run through this at the value you set. I set it at a bar. Right? It just has no life. So what you can do is take a second LFO to act as your performer. So let's unbypass all of this. And now what I'm going to do here is we're going to activate it, and we're going to then modulate that into the level of our oscillator. So it's controlling how the oscillator is actually going to be performed, essentially. And let's do the same thing with our filter. And this is just the basic LFO shape. Now if I play this, right, it actually feels more musical, and I can turn up the speed. Right, now you can get crazy with this. Let's bypass all these. And you can use a crazy LFO shape. It will have a different effect, but check this out. Right? And I actually like that, because if you use just this straight one, it's going to be pretty do-do-do-do. It's going to be pretty do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's going to be that type of vibe, right? This one allows it to kind of stutter. Maybe you can get a triplet vibe going or a dotted vibe going on just one or two sections of the grid. And that's what's happening here, right? It's going da 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 da, right? So let's play that with our beat here. Now compare that, we'll bypass this, activate this, compare that with this. Right, so there's how you guys can create ARPs and sequences in Serum. If you have any questions or comments, let me know below. And if you want more of an advanced look where we can look at using getting two different sequences involved for a 16-bar loop, or getting two different performers involved, let me know in the comments and I can do that video, and we can make this kind of like a short two video series on this topic. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm Echo Soundworks. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time.